Hey everyone, Mr. Fritz here. We're going to do some circle rotations. And what we're going to do in this problem is we want to draw an angle with the given measure in standard position. And then we want to state a coterminal angle. So really what I have to remember to start off is that in any standard position angle, my initial side is going to always begin on the x-axis, kind of running along in the positive direction. And then I'm going to, if I'm opening up in a positive direction, I'm going to open up in a counterclockwise fashion. If I'm going negative, then I would open up in a clockwise fashion. This is a positive angle, so I'm going to be rotating counterclockwise. The question is, how far am I rotating this thing? And what I like to do when I'm doing this is I'm thinking about my axes. I kind of chunk this into intervals of pi over 2. Remember, it's pi over 2 radians to open up a quarter turn, and then another pi over 2, and then another pi over 2, and then finally another pi over 2. This is kind of getting me around the circle. What might be helpful actually is, since I'm dealing with 17 pi over 12, that denominator of 12, let's convert all of these so that they have a common denominator, so I can compare where 17 pi over 12 falls in relationship to these values. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, all right, well, pi over 2, that's the same thing as 6 pi over 12. If I add another 6 pi over 12, this is the same thing as 12 pi over 12. And my 3 pi over 2, that's going to be the same thing as 18 pi over 12. And now that I have kind of this broken down, I'm actually just going to stop here because I've got 17 pi over 12. So it's going to fall between 12 pi over 12 and 18 pi over 12. So let's, and that's going to be pretty close to this 18 pi over 12 right here. So I'm going to position that kind of like this. And to show that I've opened up in that positive direction, I'm going to draw myself a little bit of an arrow that shows that I'm rotating in the positive direction over to 17 pi over 12. So check, draw an angle, done. As far as the coterminal angle, basically what we're doing here is I'm trying to go around the circle multiple times or more than this one time here until I land here at the same position. So I can do that a number of ways. I can go around the circle in a positive direction and kind of loop once around, or I can start from my initial side. I can dip into the negative direction and end here at this terminal side. The rule of thumb basically, as long as you are adding or subtracting intervals or increments of 2 pi, this is how you find your coterminal angles. So, well, let's do it both. Let's start with 17 pi over 12, and let's find a coterminal angle if I were to add 2 pi. Right? So what that would be is if I were to go around the circle a full 2 pi radians, and then another 17 pi over 12, that's what this would be. I'm going to get rid of this. It's looking a little crazy. But if I were to go around a full rotation and then another 17 pi over 12, this is how I would find it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this, once again, a common denominator. So let's go ahead and squeeze in a 24 pi over 12. And if I add this straight across, I have, 17 and 24. I think that's 41 pi over 12. So here's a coterminal angle right here. 41 pi over 12. That's the same thing as going around the full circle for 2 pi radians, and then another 17 pi over 12. So that takes care of addition. Let's also try subtracting. Let's take 17 pi over 12, and let's pretend that I was going to go the opposite direction, take a negative rotation. So if I were to subtract 2 pi from this, or subtract 24 over 12, 24 pi over 12, that would be, I think that comes out to be a negative 7 pi over 12. And so that's what this rotation would be. This would be a negative 7 pi over 12. Negative 7 pi over 12. Those are both coterminal angles. I could do this an infinite number of times. I can go around the circle once. I can go around the circle twice. Doesn't matter. As long as you're adding or subtracting increments of 2 pi, you should be all set. So there you have it. Hope this was helpful, and good luck with your angles.